Okay, so Rakarth the Beastlord has been announced as the next free LC character for Total War Warhammer 2. His blades are sharp, he's ready to flay his enemies alive, and with 20 good Hydras, he should be able to conquer the world in no time. Ewan Rayon, the man who famously played Ramsay Bolton on Game of Thrones, is indeed voicing this new Dark Elf Lord, and you guys should be able to see him in action starting tomorrow. I think the game plan is to get a multiplayer battle video up on Wednesday, and then stream some campaign. Now, in both the Great Vortex and Mortal Empires maps, he'll be starting his conquests in Albion. So for now, I guess we can kiss our dreams of naked wood warriors goodnight. It's an interesting start position, a lot like Noctilus in the Galleon's Graveyard, in that theoretically you can sail wherever you want and do whatever you want. You're in a very central location that can tackle pretty much any enemy at the start. But like Noctilus, I think that might ultimately end up being kind of the illusion of choice rather than the actual reality of choice during gameplay. I mean, the issue you're gonna run into probably is the High Elves are almost certain to declare war on you. So just like Kalidor and the Galleon's Graveyard, if you don't start messing with Ulthuan early, your home base is gonna get full stack constantly on the higher difficulties by a bunch of knife ears, and one High Elf faction is pretty likely to draw the others into the conflict with you as well. The High Elves and Skaven are the two factions most likely to snowball out of control in Mortal Empires, if left unchecked by the player. So, while the idea of an early raid into Marienburg or Lustria sounds awesome, you're essentially letting the fox guard the chicken coop by leaving Albion undefended so close to Ulthuan's shores. Which sucks, because conquering all High Elf territory on Ulthuan takes a really long time, and it's kind of boring fighting them over and over again, but I don't know that you'll have that much choice. The nice thing, though, is that Albion has been kitted out for your arrival. The mysterious Ohm Stones improve public order and rapidly change your corruption levels in a positive way, and the port of Nagranath, constructed around a pair of beach black arcs, grants increased income from slaves and gives you 800 Warhammer bucks per turn. So this is where you're going to want to send all your battle captives, because your Dark Elf economy will start popping off and shine bright like a diamond when you're funneling all your slaves into Albion. And you'll even be in a bit of a foot race with your buddy Lokhir Fellheart, that douche who stole your gold mask, because you'll be looking to confederate Karen Carr early. Both of you will, and for Rakarth, you'll get it done once you've captured 2,500 slaves, which realistically means you'll pretty much automatically beat AI Lokhir to the punch every single time. It's just not very hard to accumulate 2,500 slaves. As we were expecting, Rakarth has a ton of focus on monsters and buffing them into the stratosphere. He's a Beast Lord for a reason, so he improves on what normal Beastmasters brought to the field in just about every conceivable way. Every Hydra, Black Dragon, Charybdis, or other freakish monstrosity under his command gets +8 melee defense, -1 recruitment duration, and murderous mastery. With Carrion Crows at level 12, he gets no upkeep cost for Harpies, which sounds fun, but it's probably questionable in terms of usefulness because of the way supply lines still work, which reminds me that the balance beta is likely defunct at this point. I've not heard anything about it for many moons at this point, and I'm not sure CA ever had real plans to continue developing that in parallel to the base game. I hope they got what they wanted out of it. I'm not sure I did. I'm not sure exactly what the point of it was, or if they'll ever continue it, but the whole thing's a little bit weird. Anyway, Rakarth's coolest two traits are the ones that give his Hydra's Abyssal Howl and his Charybdis Frost Breath, which turns both into incredible units, Hydra's especially, with that innate regen, and another takes its place special rule, and his Whip of Agony, which strips enemy monsters of fear and terror. So if he's in a dire situation, dueling Imric and Midnaithnir, Star Dragon, Shaggoth, whatever, and manages to get them reasonably low, once their leadership is around 21, you pop that whip, and a terror-causing monster that could have routed a large portion of your army will then terror rout itself, because once its terror is stripped from it, it can be susceptible to terror itself, and that makes it easy prey for rear charges and a final strike to finish them off. So that sounds pretty awesome. Could be really good in multiplayer and certainly solid in campaign too. Rakarth has innate bonus for Slorge, Whiplash for buffing himself when mounted on a Manticore or his Black Dragon Brachus, or other monsters in his menagerie. He can passively stop nearby allied creatures from rampaging with the Beastlord's Gaze. He gets bonuses to his own melee defense and ward save when enemy creatures are near with the Beast Armor of Karen Carr. He gives Scourge Runners and Reaper Bolt Throwers Harpy Claw Bolts, which suppress enemies on contact and slow them even further. And we haven't even gotten to his legit unique mechanic yet, the Beast Pens, which let his entire faction instantly recruit captured monsters. You can get mammoths when fighting in Norska, stegodons and carnosaurs when fighting against lizardmen, Charybdis by fighting battles at sea, Medusas, Hydras, giant wolves, exploding squigs, and even black dragons from capturing elven settlements. So doom stacking with him is really easy. I think he's going to be the friend of quite a few players on legendary difficulty where those single entity monsters are especially strong. So look, Rakarth is shaping up to be awesome. He's a really damn good lord and a clear upgrade over regular Beastmasters. But it's not just generic Beastmasters that he's outperforming. It's the other legendary lords as well, at least on paper. And his addition, while great in a lot of ways, is also doing a fantastic job of highlighting the flaws and failings of previous lords. Now, I will never begrudge CA for improving on their product and learning from past mistakes. We should not be upset in the slightest that Rakarth has a better approach and mechanics than paid lords that came before, because it's only natural that CA would listen to feedback for those and look to get better. But I would be remiss to not mention the toes that our new boy is stepping on, and he is stepping on some big ones here. I'm not the biggest fan of the circle jerk where we cry that every little thing that feels a teeny bit outdated needs immediate fixing, because that's a rabbit hole that has no end. We will literally never see the end of it as we get more and more content and CA continues to improve. But it is important to call attention to the troubling trends that have the potential to adversely affect the trilogy moving forward, and to point out the legitimate flaws in older campaigns that could relatively easily be addressed. So for one, the Mount power creep issue that we've talked about before is highlighted here very well. Not in terms of Rakarth and Brachus and the Free LC, because I don't actually have a problem with them at all, but it demonstrates how dumb the Maelstrom edition for Lokhir Fellheart was. Lokhir the Kraken Lord did not need a made-up black dragon. Lokhir is a Corsair Reaver with 2 shiny red swords from Ind, known for beating the piss out of people with his own hands, up close and personal. He is a duelist. Giving him a random black dragon and then watching him become the black dragon rather than standing on his own 2 feet is not the correct approach. Just like giving Wulfric, a well-known duelist, a mammoth that does all his fighting for him, or giving Teclis an Arcane Phoenix when what makes him special is his spellcasting, not the monster that now does all his work for him. You would not give Grimgor Ironhide or Vlad von Karstein a big scary mount. CA clearly should not have given one to Lokhir. It strips away his uniqueness. We now have 3 legendary lords that ride black dragons, and rather than add to the variety in the game, those kind of design decisions ultimately strip them away. The other issue, of course, is comparing Rakarth to Malus Darkblade, a free LC lord versus a DLC lord, paid lord versus free lord, and it's pretty clear at this point that the free LC lord blows Malus completely out of the water. I think Shadow and Blade was one of the weaker lord packs we've gotten so far. Not that it's bad by any means, and especially compared to Game 1, it made leaps and bounds. There's a ton of great additions there, but as I've said before, it kind of felt like, even at the time, that it was scraping the bottom of the barrel for units and design mechanics. And Malus is now stuck in a position that really isn't tied to his lore at all. When he's in the Dragon Isles, he doesn't really have his lore-friendly enemies to fight. He'd be much better served in Game 3, fighting beastmen and demons and warriors of chaos in his search for artifacts in the wastes up north. Honestly, I could see Rakarth being a pretty good fit for the Dragon Isles. They make sense for him. There are plenty of monsters down there, for sure, but the fact that the Beastlord gives all his Cold One stock and passively negates Rampage, and that even regular Beastmasters have better buffs for Cold Ones than Malus does, while he's paying thousands of monies just to drink a boring elixir that allows his army to actually replenish, well, that doesn't feel very good. I actually think Malus Darkblade's campaign is still fun, but that's because of the start position and because Dark Elves are fun and their roster is fun, not because of the stuff that he himself brings to the table. And that's kind of a crying shame from one of the most iconic characters in Warhammer history. He feels really kind of hodgepodge together. Like, even his right that summons a full stack of beasts feels much better suited to Rakarth the Beastlord and has no real tie to who Malus is as a character. Malus should have always prevented Rampage on all Cold One units in his army. He should have gotten huge combat bonuses to their combat potential and support to make them more viable. And I think one of the issues here is that CA often falls into the trap of treating units the same when they are not. Hydras, for example, don't need to be buffed by Rakarth quite as much because Hydras are a super good unit base. They are already a very solid choice in campaign. But there are some units that are just not good in campaign, and those have to be treated differently when a Legendary Lord is being granted bonuses for them. Because if they don't get that extra love and care, that little push to get them over the top, get them over the edge, they still won't get used. Such is the case with Cold Ones and Dread Knights in Malus Darkblade's army. A cavalry commander with a famous Cold One named Spite, who doesn't want to use Cold Ones in campaign because the buffs he gets for them simply are not enough to make them viable or fun. I mean, Cold One Knights are a solid unit in multiplayer in terms of their cost efficiency, their mass, and their ability to hit pretty hard, but they're squishy as balls, and there's really no reason to ever bring them in campaign because they just die every time an enemy farts in their general vicinity, especially on very hard battle difficulty. They don't really have much of a chance against anything. They'll be losing models to archers. It's a little bit embarrassing. And this has been a pretty common trend, that trash-ass units in campaign get buffed exactly the same as super good units, and I think it's something CA needs to look into a bit more during their design process and realize that not all units have been created equal, which is fine, but if you're going to create a Legendary Lord that buffs that unit, they need something extra to get them over the top. If you're gonna make a Lord that specializes in bad units, you need to do more for them to make them viable. And honestly, we can see that once again here with Rakarth. Free upkeep Harpies at level 12 sounds nice on paper, but most people aren't going to use that because a full stack or half stack or whatever stack of Harpies just isn't very good when you're unlocking Black Dragons early on from a border war with the High Elves. And the way supply lines works, you are incentivized to power spam with your units because jacking your supply lines penalty up just for a Harpy stack is very rarely, if ever, going to be worth it. You can't siege Lokhir with a stack of Harpies. You can with a stack of Hydras and Black Dragons. Just something to think about. So yeah, Rakarth is looking and sounding awesome here. You guys will be able to see him in action on my channel tomorrow. Should be a lot of fun. I hope to see you there, and I'll see you all in the next video and live streams. Have a good one, guys.